Welcome back to Parenting Shrink Wrap. Melissa and Sam here today, and happy fall. And I think one of the holidays that always comes to mind when I think about the fall is Halloween. And what Halloween looks like is different for everyone. But I remember the days of dressing up my kids when they were really little in cute little costumes, when I had full say. And there was a cute little pumpkin costume that I put my boys in together. This is before my daughter was even alive. And, they were walking around in matching costumes. And those days are over now. Halloween has changed through the years. And I know for Sam, Halloween has taken on many different costumes through the years of her kids growing up. But we wanted to talk about Halloween and parenting today and what that looks like.
Can I confess something before we get started?
What,
I
Sam?
really hate Halloween. I mean, I know this is what we want to talk about, but like, I don't know. Even when I was younger, I liked the challenge of creating a cool costume, like the artwork that went along with it. But I don't like the taste of chocolate. I never have. Like, it's one of the tastes I gag on. I hate
I will
chocolate.
significantly disagree with you there. I'm more into chocolate than I am the sweet and sour candy.
So like most people, like I would come home with 2/3 of a bag of stuff I didn't like, and the other 2/3 were like the crappy candy, like Smarties, and I
Oh,
don't like Smarties either. So I would be like Halloween for me. My haul was like a handful of Lifesavers when I was younger, maybe some Starbursts, Reese's Pieces if I was lucky. But also, I don't like jump scares. I don't like ghoulish things. I don't like the gore. Like even now, as a 50-year-old woman, I don't like going into stores and having some motion detected ghoul just like jump into action
better
because I
stay
want
out of Home Depot and Lowe's during
precisely.
Halloween.
Yes, those big like life-size skeletons, like they go.
They're bigger than life size, Sam. The Home Depot skeleton is like, I don't know, like 8 feet tall or
Yeah,
some
like a
crazy
story and a
nonsense.
half. Yes, yeah. So anyway, I don't love Halloween, and as an educator, it falls right during like one of the more frantic times in the school year. So like October is full on everything month. You still have like the pizzazz and jazz of the start of the school year. Everyone's energy
But the
levels are like
honeymoon of the jazz of the start of the school year is done.
precisely, exactly. So you're like in this frenetic like fall festival, homecoming, all the sporting events, all these things are happening, plus end of the first marking period. And then it's like, oh, by the way, I want to be this for Halloween. Can we please make sure that happens? And it's like, ugh. Anyway, so I don't like it for a number of
Well,
reasons.
I really like more of the fall festivals and the pumpkin picking and the apple picking and those sort of fall activities better than necessarily all the straight up Halloween stuff. Um, and
Yeah.
I think in the kind of interim period between not having young kids myself and just being a married adult, Halloween wasn't really much of anything besides make sure I had some candy in the house to hand out to trick-or-treaters.
I used to go as a black-eyed pea every time someone would, and all I would do is I would put the letter P on my sweatshirt and put eye black under my eyes. That's what I would go dressed as, because I was like, it's clever and it takes no effort. That was, that was. There you go. There's a costume idea if you're looking for one. But I do want to have this conversation in part because I don't know, I have some feelings about Halloween, but I also have fond feelings about like looking back on Halloween. I was just actually this week, we're recording this during the summer and it's going to come out in the fall. But just earlier this week, my daughter and I were howling with laughter as we were looking through Instagram and like online posts that were funny kid Halloween costumes. Like, when your kid is of the age and they're like, I want to be and some of the things on there, one was like a scary rectangular prism. That was another was
What?
right. What was a squid? Just like the weird things that kids wanted to be. And then there were pictures of the costumes, an evil washing machine. That was one. And the parents had made these costumes and they were fantastic.
What was your most memorable Halloween costume that you remember either from yourself or from your kids? Because I have one that I just thought of.
When my son was 2, he insisted on being a black telephone. That's all he wanted to be. And and this was the time of flip phones. So I made a costume where he was a flip phone, and like it was a black sweatsuit, and I painted it with metallic paint to make the dial, the buttons. And then I made this headset that went around his head that he wore on a headband and had like an antenna that came up. And he talked like he had this grisly voice. He talked like this, and his voice and his pronouns were all reversed. So instead of saying like "I want to be a black telephone," he would say, "You're gonna be a black telephone." And that was definitely the best Halloween costume, hands down.
Okay.
And yours?
I was thinking back to when I was in high school. I always did art as my elective. I didn't do chorus, and I played piano, but I wasn't part of like school band. So I took art all the way through advanced placement art in high school. And I remember that the art teacher was actually throwing like a costume Halloween party. And I was probably a junior or senior. I don't remember exactly which year it was. And I decided I wanted to be a Christmas tree. Now, this is pre Pinterest days, pre like looking on the internet for like costumes and stuff like that. And it was not something you could just like buy at Party City or something, which I don't even think isn't around anymore. I think Party City went out of business. And there weren't these like massive Halloween stores that would pop up everywhere like they do now. So, and Christmas is a huge deal for my parents. And growing up, like Christmas, my father put thousands of lights out every year, decorations. So Christmas really was a big deal. So I get this idea.
He was Clark Griswold. Your house was the Griswold.
Yes, it was. And so I remember like literally my mom taking like garland, like green garland out of like the Christmas decoration boxes and like wrapping me like a mummy in garland along with like a set of battery operated like Christmas lights and like putting a star on my head as
awesome.
like a headband.
That's a great costume.
I was a Christmas tree one year.
All right, so like the costumes again, there's definitely fond memories that go with the costumes. But let's talk a little bit about Halloween through the ages. Okay,
costumes when they're little.
When they're little, so cute.
They're so cute, but you're picking. You're in full control. So one of my kids, my middle son, is born in the first 2 weeks of October.
Okay.
So he was born, and I literally had like an infant who was a couple weeks old for a Halloween, but also had an older kid. So, but it was like, oh, I want to be matchy, and I wanted to do all the family costumes. We were all the Incredibles one year.
That's great. That's a great costume too, right there. That's great.
So they're super cute, but you have full control. But also too, like some of those Halloweens were really rough. Like when they're toddlers, like they don't want to walk for miles. They can barely make it to a couple of houses to go trick-or-treating. They're having meltdowns because they're tired. Like around here is not like where I grew up. Used to be able to go trick-or-treating like all day on Halloween. Where Sam and I live, it's like I would say like a dusk. So 6 o'clock is probably the earliest people are going out trick-or-treating. I grew up very differently.
I never did all day trick-or-treating. It was like when it got dark. That was
No. So growing up, it was like a 2-phase thing in my house, Sam. We went trick-or-treating with my mom after school if it happened to fall on a school day. And then went home, ate dinner, and my dad took us back out for round two after dinner.
Oh my gosh. That must have been your community. I've never heard of that. Listeners, if
Well,
you're
yeah, but I grew
right,
up in New York. I didn't grow up here in Maryland.
but listeners, if you are listening to this and you have like daylight Halloween tradition in your town or where you live, we want to hear about it. I'm fascinated. That's I've never heard of that before.
So, but here, Halloween trick or treating doesn't start until it's getting dark out. But when you have a toddler,
Yeah.
or they're getting ready for bed at that time. So this is like this one-off day where they're in their witching hour, and now you expect them to be like on their best, going up to doors and going trick or treat and saying please or thank you.
And then you get them home and you put them to bed, maybe. And meanwhile, they're still ding dong at your door all evening long, and your kid can't even fall asleep. And you're like, please, I turned my light off. Like, don't knock on my door anymore, right? Like, you turn into like cranky old.
Our thing
neighbor.
always was, we'll just put the bucket of candy out. But then it was always, unfortunately, somebody came along and took the whole bucket.
Then you got to worry about eggs and toilet paper. So
Yes.
that just, yep. So Halloween with toddlers it's a balancing act. And if you can, if you haven't done a Halloween with a toddler, it's not bad to have backup. You know, someone at your house doing the candy distribution and someone else doing the toddler escorting.
Yeah. Or unfortunately, like your house may be dark on Halloween and you may not be giving out candy if you're out yourself.
Mm-hmm. But then, and okay, so then your kids get a little bit older, and there's this like kind of magical time when they're still very adult and parent oriented, and that's probably when you guys were the Incredibles, right? And they want nothing more than to share this event with you, and they are old enough to be able to do that in a way that's super fun. And if it falls on a school day, you still have work and all of these things, but like there's this really, I don't know, memorable time when the kids are just super excited about it. And so even if you're like me and you're a bah humbug Halloween person, like I kind of dug it when my kids were of that age because they were so jazzed. And then
Did you do family costumes?
No, because that would have been way too much work.
And that's fair. I mean, The Incredibles was easy. I just bought a bunch of costumes in different sizes. So
what my husband used to do is he would order a new wig every year, and he would wear some kind of funky wig while he walked them around. So like we had for a while a collection of like 80s rock star wigs, like big like Cher curly hair wig. Just so yeah, my husband he would dress up a little bit and I wouldn't.
Sometimes I find the problem with Halloween a little bit, even in that kind of like elementary school age where they're kind of like the perfect age for it. It's the weather here where we live. Sometimes it's been really hot and then the costume is too warm, or it's freezing out and you're throwing on winter coats and covering up the costume.
Yeah, it's like, what are you? Well, under here, 12 layers down, I'm a unicorn.
Yeah.
But I put a hat on over my horn, right? Like just
But also too, it's tough too, like some of the costumes, when you're thinking about costumes, is like, can your kid actually walk and move around in this costume?
Oh my
like
God.
this
Funniest is like when like one of those inflatable dinosaurs comes by and
they're like waddling.
Exactly. All right, so now then we get to tween, right? This is that like big push pull, right?
This is like end of elementary school, start of middle school age. And it's gonna vary depending on where your kid is at developmentally, because there's a big range in this age bracket.
This is the beginning of the negotiations, right?
Yeah.
So like, can I trick or treat by myself? How far? What's my radius? If the answer is yes, who's allowed there with me? Who's a no? If you're going to trick or treat by yourself, who are the decision makers that I don't want around my kid on a night where they're given extra freedom, right?
And there's also some grieving that might happen in here as a parent, because your kid doesn't want necessarily you around anymore
Mm.
for trick-or-treating. And if this is something that you guys have always done as a family, that child's going to start to pull away at that age where you're just not cool anymore to be
And if
seen.
if you've got younger, if the child, if you've got an oldest who's doing that, who's hitting that, and then you've got younger kids, like that's a tough one to navigate. Like, well, the rest of us are going to be the
Yep.
Incredibles, and but the
We're
oldest
going
is
to be
going.
down one.
Yeah, the oldest is going out on their own or going to a Halloween party or whatever it is. Plus, here's the thing: I know, like, there's lots of research to support the fact that when teenagers and preteens get into groups, their like parts of their brain light up because they're like they have an audience and they're more likely to take bad risks. So you put like kids hopped up on sugar with less adult supervision, or maybe who haven't had the freedom to have, like, if this is a first time with no adult supervision or less supervision, it's not like um, they're roaming the streets by themselves. You know, other people
No.
are going to see them, but
And they're not intentionally like trying to be misbehaved or quote bad.
no. But like, truly, the most, like, sometimes the most obnoxious groups are groups of middle schoolers who are probably old enough to be like, they probably live two houses down or five houses
They're old
down.
enough to be out by themselves.
Hmm. But not old enough to be good citizens.
Well, and
All
also
the
too,
time.
they might be like rebelling. Like if you were more like on Halloween, really kind of limiting and looking at the candy, going, okay, like you're not gonna be eating a bunch of this. I could see the middle schooler then going in the opposite direction and like eating tons and tons of candy as they get it trick or
Uh,
treating.
right, because like I gotta get it now because otherwise I know that my parents gonna ration it for the next like 6 weeks, and and then you've got also got so this is a reminder to parents: if you have middle schoolers, this is a tough one, but also if you don't have middle schoolers and you see them out and about, have some grace, because this is an age group. If you don't have kids this age, your kids will get to this age and they will be obnoxious a little bit also, and you may think that they won't be, but like, this is what happens when they get together. They just get really focused on each other and they forget the world and they act in ways that are just consumed with whatever their priorities are, and they don't mean to
They're just
not walk
running
on
off
the
of
street.
impulse. They're
Yeah,
just running off of impulse.
they're walking across your grass instead of down your front stoop or whatever. This is just standard middle school behavior. And now kids do take it too far, right? Like ding dong ditch, or like,
Yeah, that's not okay.
no, that's not okay. How about like, how do you about costume policing for middle schoolers or
Well,
teen
this
or
is tough
teenagers?
too because this is when sometimes they're sizing wise, they're starting to hit puberty and they're looking at costumes that might be more revealing, inappropriate, scarier.
Or themes that are inappropriate. Like, I remember my son, I sent him into the Halloween store because it was a last minute thing, and he came back with a costume. I don't remember the exact detail. I think it was like a costume for CBD gummies. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
You can't be a CBD gummy
I
for
was like, you
Halloween.
can't be. I'm the school counselor. I'm the don't do drugs lady. Like, you can't be a CBD gummy costume for Halloween. And then it was, of course, non-refundable because it was like 2 days before. So we were the unproud owners of an unused CBD gummy costume, which may still be in my house somewhere. I don't know, but like, that was a good lesson
Hopefully, you
learned.
discarded it in the move.
the Well, my
Or
son
maybe it
becomes.
got ruined in the move.
Yeah, he's in college now, so that like could get recycled at some point. I don't know, but the,
If it still fits.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's not just revealing; it's also like, are the themes appropriate for your family's values or your kid or wherever they're going?
Well, and I think it's tough too because where my kids go to school, which is also happens to be where Sam's kids graduated from. In the elementary school, they do a Halloween parade,
Mhm.
and by the time the fifth graders are in the parade, like they are sending out clear messages repeatedly that like please don't send any weapons with your kid's costume because if you're going to be one of the Avengers or something for Halloween, which isn't necessarily an appropriate theme, they have kids in the school who are 3-4 years old, like so they talk about it, but once you hit middle school, the school aspect of Halloween also looks different. There's no more necessarily Halloween parade that's going to happen. And none of the kids want to be there on Halloween. They're focused on wanting to be sugared up. I can't imagine, Sam,
The
the
day
buzz.
after Halloween is worse than the day of, actually.
True.
As an educator, the day after Halloween, you're like, oh gosh, like none of us are functional. Like the
Well, I
kids.
think it's like the teachers have been answering the door all night or taking their own kids out trick or treating. So nobody got to bed on time. You're like sugar crashing.
November 1st in America should just be a school holiday. It's just like it's a useless day anyway. Everyone's a mess except high schoolers because like this is the thing like and so this moves us on to the next phase like older kids there's this range of like some of them still want to trick or treat and I'm always like let them. If your whole high schooler wants to trick or treat, more power to them. If they want to stay young, if they're going to come up with a costume, let them. And please don't be one of those curmudgeons who's like, "You're too old. I'm not giving you any candy." Like if
I
they
couldn't imagine ever doing that to a kid at my door, even if they showed up without a costume. I have had older kids show up without a costume on, like just dressed all in black, and they ring the doorbell and they say trick or treat, and I hand them candy.
dressed all in black, they gave it something. They're
Like,
not,
honestly, like let them still hold on to some aspect or magic of being a kid
Mhm.
because it's going away real soon, especially if they're a teenager already.
Yeah.
Because in college, there's probably Halloween parties and stuff, but those take on a whole other dynamic um
Yeah, that's
than in the
the
teen
zombie
years.
costume might be coming back full circle, like I said, right? That's just so.
Hmm.
So there's the so you've got like the gamut of kids trick or treating still. You might freshmen and even some like really into it sophomores. And then you've got parties,
Yeah.
Halloween parties, whether that falls on Halloween or not, but it's an excuse for a party. And in high school, excuses for parties means you've got to be wondering whether there's substances there and
Mhm.
what kind of policing you're going to do around that. And then you've got other kids who are like, no, I've outgrown this. Maybe I'll give out candy or maybe I won't. And then you've got kids who are like, no, I have a test tomorrow. My AP teacher won't let off the gas and I have to study on Halloween evening.
Yeah. So it runs the gamut for sure. And I think one thing to think about on Halloween, no matter how old um child is, or even the adult, because we're all guilty of stealing some of our kids' Halloween candy too, is what we do about the volume of candy that you've either purchased to hand out or that your kids collected.
Mm-hmm. And when I was a school counselor, I used to send messages out to the families in our school saying, if you have leftover candy, you can send them in to me because I had a bottomless candy jar in my office that was never empty and it was bait. It was like
Yeah.
what kids would come in between classes, shoot the breeze for a little bit, pick up a piece of candy and leave. And so I had a parade of kids coming into the counseling office on purpose for a non-problem reason, right? They wanted to come in.
Which builds rapport.
Yes. So, but that was out of the budget. That was out of my department budget. So, there like an influx of candy after Halloween in my office, like it was fantastic. So, this is to say, you may have educators in your kids' school who would be delighted to put your extra candy in a drawer and distribute it in pieces over the next few weeks or
Oh, I
months.
put it out in my office. That's how I unload all the excess candy from holidays.
And So you've got to, like, I remember some parents were like that you can have this much, but the rest we're donating,
Hmm.
because for you to eat this much candy, it's going to all go like really south. Like you'll still be eating this candy in April when, peeps roll around. Um, so yeah, there's the sugar battle. Do you just let your kids have full reign until they get sick of it? Do you do like one at a time? And
But it speaks to like wanting to control something.
yes,
There's a
yeah.
control aspect that comes into play with this, like, how do I handle this, like, one-off huge volume of sugar that is suddenly in my home?
So let's talk a little bit about just how to handle that preemptively, because you're right, it is an issue of control. It's going to be like kids want one thing, parents want a different thing. Um, and so anytime you're going into a situation like that, I think it pays to have a little bit of an anticipatory guidance conversation with your child if they're old enough to handle it. Like, hey, you're likely to get a whole mess of candy the evening of. I'm sure you and your friends will dump your candy out on somebody's living room rug and trade, right? You'll do the negotiating. And then, or you and your siblings or whoever you do that with, right? And um, then what's going to happen with it? Like, that's a conversation to tell kids in advance, particularly if your child has any kind of difficulty rolling with the punches, and plenty
Yeah.
of kids do.
Like, my kids know, like, they each collecting what they're collecting, but it goes into one big vat of bowl or bag, or depends on depends on what year it is.
Oh wow, your kids are okay with that. So that's the thing. In my
Mm-hmm.
household growing up, I would have been like, I'm not putting my candy
Oh,
in my
growing up, my
fridge.
brother and I we kept it totally separate. So it was like, come home, go through, make sure everything was like safe and there
Yeah.
wasn't anything that needed to be thrown away. We sorted, and my kids tend to sort too. Of like, here's all the Kit Kats, here's all the M&Ms,
Mm-hmm.
and all the chocolate things that Sam doesn't want to eat. So
Yeah, sorted and shunned and shoved those to somebody else.
that'd be a perfect thing to keep on your desk though at school. Like, then it wouldn't have been temptation
It's
for you.
I
That's
don't
phenomenal.
even like candy. Like at this point,
That's phenomenal.
I don't like
Lucky
candy.
you, Sam.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then, but my kids know that, like, we just put it all together.
Now, if you have the different personality kids, like I have one child with self control and one without, and so like the self control kid was like, I'm not putting my candy in there with the one who is just gonna eat all mine because it's there, right? Like that's a balancing act that you've kind of got to anticipate. So there's a values, and then there's also a fairness, and then there's a health component. And like any parenting issue, there's not just the kids seeking control. There's how much control you want to have and or are willing to relinquish, um, and what your child is ready for developmentally. This
Yeah.
this Halloween thing isn't just about those moving ghouls in Home Depot, right? Like this like anything is it's a parenting moment. And you can go in blind and just see how the chips fall. You can also be proactive about it and realize, okay, this is how I want to manage this, assuming the ducks fall as in a row, which they don't always, right?
They don't, but those might be your best, most memorable Halloweens too.
Most memorable, yeah. So as we wrap up, we would love to hear your Halloween stories. Also, if you have fantastic costumes to share, like if your kid's dressing up like a squid or a scary rectangular prism or a black telephone, send those pictures our way. You don't have to give names. You can even like white out faces. But like, I delight in this. I would love to see this. And that's parentingshrinkwrapped@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for joining us for this special Halloween episode. We hope you have a wonderful, safe, and happy Halloween. Thank you for raising the next generation of world changers, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride called Parenthood here at Parenting Shrink Wrapped. We hope today's episode gave you some useful tools and maybe even a few laughs to help you navigate the twists and turns of raising teens and kids.
Remember, Parenting is a journey, not a destination. And no matter where you are on the road, we're here to help you stay on course. Whether it's monumental meltdowns, teenage turmoil, or just the everyday chaos, you don't have to travel this path alone.
So until next time, keep your seatbelt fastened, your sense of humor intact, and your eyes on the road. We'll be back soon with more compassionate conversations and practical strategies to support you and your family.
Don't forget to subscribe to Parenting Shrink Wrapped wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you've enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you'd leave us a review and share it with a friend.
If you have suggestions for topics you'd like to see us cover in the future, feel free to send us an email at parentingshrinkwrapped@gmail.com.
Until we meet again, take care and enjoy the ride.